quiet the mind and rise above.
Before we start, I'd like to, or before I actually start my lesson, I'd like to share something. A young woman by the name of Rachel Held Evans. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of her. Rachel was, I read her, the first book I ever read that she wrote was about searching for Sunday, because she was leaving her evangelical church and trying to find a new home, a home that fit for her, a home that fit what she believed was right and what she really believed about the gospel. Well, yesterday morning she was 37 years old, had a child less than 1 year old, and she died from a reaction to an antibiotic. And so anyway, I just want to read something that she wrote. And it's a little evangelical, so just hang in there with me, because I often tell people that I'm an evangelical unitary, because I believe true evangelism and the gospel, the good news is what we do right here. It's the good news, and we're open, wide open to every single human being, and well, whoever shows up here. So that's who we are. And Rachel is still evangelical, but she's really close to us. So she says, but the gospel doesn't need a coalition devoted to keeping the wrong people out. It needs a family of sinners, and we'll say people who make mistakes all the time like me, saved by grace, committed to tearing down the walls, throwing open the doors and shouting, welcome, there's bread and wine in here. Come, eat with us, let's talk. It's kind of what happens in the gathering room at the end of the service. This isn't a kingdom for the worthy, it's a kingdom for the hungry. That's kind of my story. I had a whole bunch of other stuff planned, but it took me an hour and 7 minutes to get here, and I decided to do something entirely different. So hang in there with me for a few minutes. Some of you may have heard my story. I think it's important as a minister for me, the way I minister, the way I approach what we do here, is I am very intimate with everyone. I will share my story. And I have to say it's the bad and the ugly, because the good only started about 25 years ago when I was 68, so that means that there was a whole lot of stuff that wasn't pretty. It's my stuff, and I celebrate it because it made me who I am today. So if you don't like the intimacy that I'm getting ready to deal with, I apologize for that, and there is food and snacks. So here we go. So I plan to talk to you about 1 Corinthians 13. Anybody that's been to a Christian wedding, you've heard that all about being kind and not judging and all those things. There's a sign in the bookstore, you can read it yourself. And I was going to talk to you about Rabbi Hillel, who I love Rabbi Hillel. He came along before Jesus, and I believe he's the one that gave Jesus the idea to say to love one another. Because he was asked to recite the Torah, or to get the gist of the Torah, standing on one leg. And so he stood on one leg. I can't stand on one leg. These artificial knees don't work that way. So anyway, he stood on one leg and he said, don't do to others what you don't want done to you. All the rest is commentary. Now go study. You can do that on one leg if you don't have artificial knees. You can do that. So I was going to tell you all that stuff, but instead I want you to hear my story and what happened to me. And I'm not bragging, I'm not complaining, I'm sharing. Because I believe some of you have been close to where I am, and maybe you are today, because I go in and out of those things. So here's the story. As a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, I learned two things. Well, I learned three things. First thing is, it's no fun being shot at. That was not a fun thing to do. The second thing is that everybody drinks every day. Everybody drinks every day. And the third thing is that impetuous action can get you a medal. So for the next 20 some odd years, I lived that way. I lived according to the idea that I would drink every day. Even today, doctors will say, how much did you drink? And I would give them the math, and they said, how did you have time to go to the bathroom? And so I drank a lot. I drank every day. And I did a lot of impetuous things. I let my personality, I let my ego drive the bus. You make me mad? Boy, I'm upset with you. And I will let you know. And I lived that way for 20 years. 20 years. Some people say it was PTSD. I don't know what it was. All I know is that I was able to sleep when I drank. And I just didn't think before I acted. So one day, I got a call that a friend of mine from Vietnam, he and I fought fires in Alaska, and we were in Vietnam doing all those things. They was in a hospital near death. And I walked in there, and my friend who called us, who he and I both, all of us had been together, he said, Keith is dying right now in front of us. And he was staying with my friend, and he said, I found 20 pint bottles of vodka under the bed. So he drank himself to death. This man who was one of the most highly decorated pilots in Vietnam, who had been shot at and missed and shot at and hit, committed suicide by drinking himself to death. It was the only thing he could do, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying that's where he was. And I held his hand. He saved my life one day. And I held his hand and I said, you just saved my life one more time. Because I left there and went to a 12-step meeting. That was in 1992, on June the 23rd. And I haven't had a drink since. I discovered, as we say in the theology of 12-step, it's by the grace of God. And that may not fit into unity theology well, but I apologize. It's what works. So, anyway, the thing is that when I went into the 12-step, that drinking thing kind of went away fast. It was amazing. It was just went away in a couple weeks. I didn't even think about it. I will admit that the first couple of times I went there, I drank some beer before I got there so I could stand all the crap they were telling me. So anyway, so I get in there and I feel like I'm doing really, really well. And then my wife decided to leave me because she thought it was the drunk me that was the problem, and she found out it was someone else. So she said, leave the house. And so I left the house. And so I would talk a lot about that issue in 12-step meetings. And then finally, this beautiful woman, and excuse me if I'm offending anybody, but she was beautiful, and she was dressed very seductively. And she stopped me in the parking lot. And, you know, I'm newly single, and I said, oh, well. And she said, Don, if you don't get spiritual, you're going to drink it. And I said, well, how do I get spiritual? What's that about? You know, so I tried churches. I went Baptist church, Methodist church. I went all these different churches. And that wasn't working. You know, none of those things that were working for me. I don't know why. And then a friend of mine says, try Unity. He's in fact at the Unity church here in town. And he said, try this. I said, oh, one more church. I'm not going to do it. So I walked into Unity Church in North Houston, which, by the way, is the church I just led for 5 years as a minister. And I walked into that church, And it was like a 12-step meeting, except they were talking about God, but more. And it was fabulous. We're drinking coffee, and the minister was a 12-step guy. And I said, this is it. This is it. So I went for a couple months, and then I'm single, and there were not any single women in the room. And so I said, where might there be some single women? And so they said, go to the Pyramid in Houston. And that's what I did. And I met my wife, and all that worked out well. But I had every single little meditation book that you can find. Every single meditation book that there is. You know, those little bitty ones, you know, the ones for alcoholics, I had them for Al-Anon, and I just had them all. I had them all. And I had every self-help book that Unity sold in their bookstore, I think. I've given away hundreds of books. And so I'm on this thing, you know. I'm taking classes in Unity, and I'm on it. Man, I am getting spiritual, and everything's going to be great. And then my soon-to-be ex-wife, she wasn't quite yet the ex-wife, she said, we're going to file our taxes single this year because, I don't know why, but she made that decision. And I said, that impetuous thing, you know, said, I bet if I yell loud through the door, she will change her mind. So I did that. Lights came on all around. And then she said, stay away, you know. So I decided if I confronted her face to face, I might be able to work it, so I broke her door. And I said immediately, oh no. So I pulled this double door back up and held it back in place. Immediately called her, said, I'll pay for the door. And she had made the decision to call the police. And I found out there was a warrant out for my arrest, so I got a lawyer and I went in there to report it. You see, if you break something like that, it's called criminal mischief. And criminal mischief can be as simple as wrapping trees with toilet paper. That's criminal mischief. But in my case, the door cost more than $1,200, which made it a felony. And in fact, I could have stayed in jail for 2 years for that horrible thing that I did. And I'm telling you right now, I am sad for what I did, but I am grateful to her beyond any imagination. And I tell it to her at least once or twice a year. So what happened is the judge took a liking to me. I'm in my blue suit, my wingtip, vice president of the healthcare company. Here I am, and my complexion probably didn't hurt in the court. And that's wrong, but that's what it was. And she said, we're going to give you probation, and this will all be wiped out in 2 years. I said, great. So I walked out the door. Next thing I knew, my probation says my probation says don't talk to my wife. But I assumed I could talk to her about my kids, when we're going to pick up and all that kind of stuff. Well, I found out that that wasn't true. The fact is that probation is probation, and the rules are the rules. And remember that impetuous nature that I learned in Vietnam that got me medals. I did talk to her about my kids. And so, I was told I had to come to a special meeting in downtown Houston. Knocked on the door. The guy said, who are you? And I said, I'm Don Seiler. He said, are you Donald Wayne Seiler? I said, yes. And in a split second, I was face against the wall in handcuffs. And I was told because I violated my probation that I would have to serve out my time. 9 months in the county jail. Now, most of you guys know 12-step people who went to jail before they got sober. So here I was. Now, before all of this happened, I taught stress management. I even got a master's degree in behavioral science with a specialization in chemical dependency, trying to fix myself. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work. And so when I go into the jail, I think somehow we're going to get out of this thing and nobody's going to know. The corrections officer in the place that I went, the corrections officer was the daughter of the woman I was dating. So the secrecy and the privacy was done. Because she's, Don, what are you doing here? So there it was. And so I walked into this pod, scared to death. And I will admit that there were only a couple of people that were white in the room. Most people were Hispanic and black, and we could talk about why that is and the troubles in criminal justice system for that. But I go into that room, and it is noisy, just loud as can be. There's no rest. It's just screaming and hollering. No fighting. At the end of the day, I'm trying to lay down, and the guy says, "Come over here." And the lights are off. And I said, "Oh, no. There's going to be some kind of initiation in the jailhouse for Don." And I go in there, and they're all standing around a table, and there's a guy with a Bible in his hand. And he reads something from the Bible. I can't remember what it was. And then we hold hands. We say the Lord's Prayer, and we say the prayer for protection. And in 3 weeks in that area, in that space, there was never a fight, never a confrontation. Everybody in that room prayed before they went to bed. And it was amazing. And I started to see that something else was active in this room. And was it the prayer? Was it the Bible? I don't know. Because we would go out in the hallway and there'd be blood on the floor where somebody had been in a fight and they were taken to the clinic. So they decided to move me to a new place. That place was cots on the floor, it was overcrowded. And I needed out. The guards made me in charge of my group, which I didn't want to be in charge of anybody. They just did all this stuff, and then a kid got in my face. Anyway, I got into a fight with him. The only fight I've had since I was a stupid airborne kid. And anyway, at that fight, I thought I was done, because he was an African-American kid, and I really thought that everybody, because race is a big deal in jail. And I thought, here I am, I'm in trouble. And they put him in the shower and told the guard he fell down. And that was an amazing thing, because I had worked on being friendly with everyone, no matter their race, skin color, or anything. I worked on being that. Because what had come to me is that I was in a place where there was no return, and my only choice was not through my thinking, because I was not going to be able to talk my way out of anything. All I could do was love my way through it. And I was reminded of something that a man named Viktor Frankl wrote about. Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp, and he survived the concentration camp. And I want to share something with you. Viktor Frankl was stripped naked, and they took his wedding ring. And he thought, I can never live through this. And he said this. He says, man can preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom, of independence of mind, even in such terrible conditions of psychic and physical stress. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing: the last of human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That's pretty darn beauty, isn't it? And there were always choices to be made. Every day, every hour offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers which threatened to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you would become the plaything of circumstance, renouncing freedom and dignity to become molded into the form of the typical inmate. That was my choice. I was not going to do that. But I didn't know how I was going to do it in the face of the violence in that room. So my sponsor came. And he saw those tears start to come in my eyes, and that's a dangerous thing in the jailhouse. Start to have tears. And so he put his hand up against it, and I put my hand against the plexiglass, and he said, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And I said, "I can't make it. I cannot do this." I remember Viktor Frankl. but I didn't think I had it in me. And I said, the only thing I can think of is to call Silent Unity. So immediately, he called Silent Unity. And in 2 hours, I was in a trustee position where I could actually be outside, and I was washing cars, but I was outside. And I was in a pod where people were all working outside. They were all trustees. And in that place, there's still this tension. Just the day before I got there, a guy had been stabbed with the inside of a ballpoint pen. Killed him right there in his heart. And I said, this is the time. This is the time to live the love I am. This is the time. And I began an AA meeting. They had one AA meeting a week into the right place, you know? And so I began an AA meeting. My sponsor shipped me bits and pieces of the big book, because you can't get a big book, because who knows what's inside. You have to get pieces of it and come in an envelope. And then I started that same project of reading from the Bible and asking others to read from the Bible. And every man in this room would stand around holding hands and saying the prayer for protection. And in the last 3.5 months that I was in jail, that room never had a fight. Never had a fight. Never had any experience of violence. Occasionally people would get loud, and it never happened. It never happened. And what I saw as I sat there on what was called the border between the hood and the barrio, because everybody was in this space, in their own spaces, and I slept right next to those, in the middle of those places. I didn't go join the rest of the Caucasian, the white guys. I wanted to show and be loved. I wanted to be that. And that's what I did. And when you talk about freedom, the absolutely amazing thing for me was I lost my freedom. I had no choice. I couldn't walk out the door. In fact, when I first went to go wash cars, they said, if you go past this edge here, I'll shoot you in the back. So it's over. The freedom is gone. Viktor Frankl had it there. I still am free. I'm free. And you're free to make the choices despite all circumstances, because that's personality. So when we talk about love, we love not because we want to love somebody. Certainly that's important when we're in a romantic relationship. But we love because we're seeing the face of God in every person. That jerk that cut you off, what can you say? I am loved. Or I see the face of God. Practice that on moped. I drove moped for 3 years. I lived in Fredericksburg and worked in town. So I know what that's like. Before I read this, I want to say something. The idea of being loved came from Ram Dass. And he said, if we need love, or if we want to give love, we're in an unbalanced situation. The best balance is to be loved. To be loved. So, a thought transfixed me for the first time in my life. I saw the truth, as it was said in the song by many poets, and proclaimed in final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment in the contemplation of his beloved. That's the answer. We sing songs, all we need is love. We say namaste, but you can sing all we need is love in here. And you can namaste your butt off in here, and you're not going to live that truth unless you work it out there. Unless you work it on MOPAC and work it when you see the politicians that you don't like, when you see the bumper sticker that bothers you. The face of God is right there. They may not be manifesting the way you want to manifest it. That's our truth. Love is the answer. So we be love. So it is.